The Beginning of Indian Cinema, written by Raghav Suri. Part 1. A View Through Hiralal Sen's Bioscope. Today, India stands as one of the rising global powers. It's one of the largest economies today and has seen significant economic growth since independence. A resurgence of a culture is occurring both in India and abroad. Indians in India, Indians in the diaspora, and foreigners are all reveling in the beauty, diversity, and richness of Indian culture. Of course, today one cannot imagine the rich artistic culture of India without mentioning Indian cinema. The country produces more films than any other and makes films in over 20 Indian languages. But how did this dynamic industry get started? For that, we will have to go back over a century ago. Picture the scene. It is India in the early 1900s. The First World War will be the defining moment of the next decade, though the world doesn't know it yet. There is a continued movement towards the independence of India from the British Empire, though it will still be almost half a century until India gets her independence, and then a bit longer for parts of Western India to get independence from the Portuguese Empire. In the midst of the freedom struggle, as in any freedom struggle, are the great artists who document the journey. They tell stories of heroism, of courage, often dark, though often with the hope of light of a nation looking to break the shackles of empire, an ancient civilization looking to reclaim its glory and once again take its rightful place on the world stage. One figure who documented the beginnings of the independence movement, the Swadeshi movement, and the resurgence of India in the 20th century was Hiralal Sen. Hiralal Sen is widely hailed as one of the pioneering filmmakers in India. Sadly, a fire in 1917 led to the loss of all his films, and no copies are known to exist today. Nevertheless, his contributions continue to occupy a significant place in the story of Indian cinema. If we discuss the beginning of Indian cinema, Hiralal Sen's name must be known. Hiralal Sen was born on the 2nd of August 1868 in the Bengal Presidency's Manikganj district in a village called Bagjuri. This land is now part of Bangladesh. Despite being born in his family's village, Hiralal Sen spent most of his life in Kolkata, then called by the British name Calcutta. His father was a well-known lawyer who belonged to a respected Baidya Zamindar family from the region. In the year 1898, a motion picture was screened at the famous Star Theatre, one of the prominent theatres in the city, located in the Bidhan Sarani area, then known as Cornwallis Street. Hiralal had watched a short film which accompanied a stage performance of The Flower of Persia. The short film was made by a certain Professor Stevenson. Hiralal got to know Professor Stevenson and decided to borrow the latter's camera. Hiralal Sen was clearly fascinated by this rather new medium of the motion picture and wanted to make his own production. He decided to make a motion picture called A Dancing Scene, which was a recording of the stage performance of The Flower of Persia. He would later, with his brother Motilal's help, buy a film projector, known as an urban bioscope. 1 year later, Hiralal and Motilal Sen founded the Royal Bioscope Company. In his lifetime, Hiralal Sen made a total of 40 short films. Most of these films were recordings of stage performances, often performed at the Classic Theatre. Many of these were stories about India's history and some of the greatest historical figures in Indian history. These motion pictures included Brahmar, Hariraj, and Buddhadev. Hiralal Sen also produced a feature film in 1903 called Ali Baba and the 40 Thieves, based on the classic tale from the Arabian Nights. However, it's believed that this film was never screened. He also made a business from creating films for advertising purposes and news purposes. He was not only the first Indian filmmaker, but the first Indian advertising filmmaker. having made one advertising film for Jaba Kusum hair oil and another for Edwards tonic. However, perhaps most notably for the time period was a film he made in 1905. The film is documenting the anti-partition demonstration and Swadeshi movement at the Town Hall, Calcutta on the 22nd September 1905 and is regarded as India's first political motion picture. One must remember that with so many movements against the British Empire, it was bold to make a film that challenged the Crown's authority. This film was also documenting a demonstration against the potential partition of India, which would, alas, occur in 1947. The Swadeshi movement was a movement encouraging self-reliance and self-sufficiency. It played a key role in the Indian independence movement and the path towards Indian nationalism. Sadly, the final years of Hiralal Sen's life were marked by financial hardship. The fire which destroyed all his films occurred just a few days before his death in 1917. He died at the age of 49 on the 26th of October in Calcutta. He had been suffering from cancer. His name has been remembered perhaps only by cinephiles and film historians. However, in 2021, a Bengali film called Hiralal, written and directed by Arun Roy, was released. The film tells the story of Hiralal Sen's life and his impact on Indian cinema. While his films didn't survive, his legacy does. And at the same time that he was making films, another filmmaker on the opposite side of India was also discovering this exciting medium. This filmmaker would ensure that India would also be a country that produced motion pictures and that soon enough an entire industry would flourish in the country. You have been listening to The Beginning of Indian Cinema Part 1, a view through Hiralal Sen's Bioscope, written by Raghav Suri, narrated by Piyush Agarwal. Words and audio are under copyright 2024 Raghav Suri. All rights reserved. You can find more works by Raghav Suri at www.raghavsuri.com and www.suriaudio.com. To listen to more stories by Piyush Agarwal, go to piyushagarwal.com or look up Kahani Jani Anjani podcast on your favorite podcast streaming app.